Welcome into the night shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, joined in studio by my guys, Kyle Collier and producer Caden Sproul. And over the course of the next hour, we got you covered on all things Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to start off talking about the trade deadline, a very uneventful trade deadline for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that we all expected them to make some sort of move, whether it was a defensive tackle, an edge rusher, maybe a running back, a guy like Breece Hall. The Chiefs didn't do anything, and I think a lot of Chiefs fans on Twitter were upset. I'm not sure if I'm necessarily pissed off, because I think that one thing that we've seen this Chiefs team do over the last 4 or 5 years, they always make very minor moves at the trade deadline, and then they kind of get together as a team as the season goes on. They get better playing together, and they have the pieces most of the time, but I didn't expect them to find some game changer at the deadline that was going to completely change this team. I mean, right now they're a 5-4 football team. I don't think one addition is going to change a lot of that. But I want to get your thoughts. What did you think of the Chiefs not really doing anything at the trade deadline?
I'm glad you brought up their past history because, yeah, in the past we've seen those Melvin Ingrams, those Terrell Suggs, the D-Hops, right? Not studs, not star players, not anything game-changing, because pretty much all those guys, Carlos Dunlap, have been done after their 8-game rental, right? This year, yeah, I expected at least, something along that defensive line because you need depth there. And, I mean, not only depth, you just need more production there. They got Mike Pennell, who requested his release from Cincinnati, a week after Chris Jones publicly said, I want him back. That's a little odd, right? But moving on.
A little tampering.
Moving on. But, yeah, they didn't do anything. And, obviously, Brett Veach said, we're good. And or, you got to find two. It takes two to dance, right? It's potential that, there's a Chiefs tax. Brett Veach may have found it difficult to get the right guy at the right price. And he didn't go overspend, so which would have been overspending if you sent a third over to the Jets for Breece Hall. He didn't do that. He stood pat. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but on the podcast when we went over this, I said exactly what it would be. We'd sign Mike Pennell, and that would be the last move. I know how the Chiefs move at the deadline. I know you pointed out, the moves in Melvin Ingram, Terrell Suggs, all those guys over the last few years, but I feel like this year is just a little bit different. And as far as, the Breece Hall trade, I think we probably shouldn't have been as stubborn on that. Maybe if the opportunity was there for a third-round pick. I mean, you look at our third-round picks over the last 5 or 6 years, not a whole lot of success there. So, I saw a take on Twitter is, we're going to be hate watching the third. Whoever we take in the third round this upcoming draft, everybody's gonna be on watch all season. But it's kind of what I expected from the Chiefs at the deadline, honestly.
The Breece Hall situation was intriguing because if you add into this offense, your running game is completely different. And I think that he's the second best back that Mahomes has ever had outside of 2018 Kareem Hunt. So the elevation of talent would be a real difference. And, even going over some of the previous trades the Chiefs have made in years past, DeAndre Hopkins past his prime. Le'Veon Bell. You remember when Le'Veon Bell got traded from the Jets to the Chiefs? Yeah. That was a wild one. Mm-hmm. But they've always made those moves that don't really move the needle because they're past their prime. Breece Hall is in a contract year, and he's going to get paid this offseason. Potentially could be a way the Chiefs, get him in free agency. But if the Chiefs traded for Breece Hall, if they sent that third-round pick over, you got to find a way to extend him this offseason. And so not only are you giving up a pretty, valuable asset in a day 2 pick, but you also got to turn around and pay the guy, and you're only getting 8 games for that third-round pick. And that is a steep price for somebody that, I hate to say it, the Chiefs probably wouldn't use to his full potential.
I'll disagree with that a little bit because Breece Hall's a stud, right? Stud running backs in the past that Andy Reid has had, Jamal Charles. Used the hell out of Jamal Charles. So I think there would have been some usage there, but a third-round pick, ideally, I don't want to spend a third-rounder on 8 games. Now, you can bring up the chance to win a Super Bowl. I'm with you. I'm with you there. But like you said, Darcy, you're going to have to pay that guy to really just to make that third-round selection worth it. it's only 8 games. Ideally, I want my third round pick to give me, if you hit, starter level production for 3 or 4 years. So I'm fine with. I know there's reports out there from somebody in New York who said the Chiefs had a 4th rounder on the table, Jets wanted a 3rd. I'm happy walking away from that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I'm glad you point out the history of Andy Reid with running backs. It's not only Jamal, but you look at dating back to Brian Westbrook, Darren Sproles, and you look at even Damian Williams. Who it was very productive, in Andy Reid's system. So I would agree that Breece Hall would have been very productive in this system as well. But yeah, like you said, Michael, you might be looking at a rental. There's no guarantee that we can even sign him again in the offseason. So I think the Chiefs looked at the long term and just would rather stick with what we have,
because they've got decisions to make next year.
Right, exactly.
Oh yeah, and honestly, we're not going to get into that on this show because that could be a 2-hour conversation about what they do with the Trent McDuffie after watching Sauce Gardner get traded to the Colts for 2 first-round picks and a player.
Yeah,
but I think my frustration is not that the Chiefs didn't trade for Breece Hall. I don't really care. I think that the Chiefs' offense isn't necessarily the issue. My problem is that there were needs on this defense, and specifically the defensive line, and they just sat back and watched as the Eagles, who also are dealing with cap issues and players not performing on the edge, the edge room, they went out and they traded a 3rd-round pick for Jalen Phillips. And I do think, there is some truth to the Chiefs tax and teams not wanting to trade with the Chiefs because they have been so dominant historically, but Bradley Chubb, Calais Campbell, Jermaine Johnson, there were offers out for him. The Jets are so confusing because they trade Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, but they keep Jermaine Johnson and Breece Hall, and they don't budge on those guys. But
Garrett Wilson as well.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, and it's like Pete Sweeney brought this up on our show earlier today, but it's like his favorite tweet of the Jets was, "If you weren't with us for the rebuild, don't be with us for the rebuild." That's what the Jets do. They are constantly in a rebuilding state, and they trade away these guys to go get first-round picks. Guess how they got those guys? All those first-round picks. It's just a mess of an organization. Yeah, you're right. They don't make sense.
The turnover is just crazy.
I don't even know if I'm really buying the Chiefs tax thing because, look at the Eagles.
Yeah,
they fleece. Yeah. It seems like, some of those offers do fire back, Adam. You look at the Tank Bigsby trade specifically. That's really been nothing. But they do make some great moves, and I just don't buy it because they continue to fleece teams year after year, and there's, no
Do we
problem.
think the Chiefs made a mistake by not making a trade for a defensive player?
Now, one of the issues that I think was limiting for Brett Veach was, the Chiefs really don't have many picks next year. I think they only have 5 or 6. Those are valuable, especially with the cap issues the Chiefs are having right now. You need cheap talent. And, but man, now don't get me wrong. I would have loved to see a Calais Campbell. We've all three talked about, just guys you can get for cheap, veteran presence, along that defensive line. I am a little disappointed that a 5th or a 6th wasn't offered up, or we'll never know. But I feel like you could have got a Calais Campbell, absolutely, for a 5th or 6th rounder.
Yeah, and he had 2 sacks the other night against the Cowboys. I think it's we could use that right now.
I feel like there were just guys out there that were rotting on bad teams, whether it was a Matthew Judon or a Bradley Chubb. I think the Chiefs could have at least made more of an effort. And I'm saying this without any inside information on what they were trying to do and who they were trying to get. We know the Chiefs put out a 4th-round pick offer for Breece Hall. That's really all we know in terms of what they were trying to do at the deadline. I think they were probably trying to get a defensive player like an edge rusher or a defensive tackle, but I also think that by re-signing Mike Pennell, which I absolutely love. In fact, we were clamoring for the Chiefs to make that move, on our last show, but just bringing back Mike Pennell is not just the end-all be-all. You can't just call it good. That being your only trade deadline acquisition, that's just not good enough.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a little disappointing because Mike Pennell comes back, but that doesn't fix, I think, your biggest problem you're not getting pressure. George Karlaftis can get some pressure, sure, but Chris Jones is no longer at that Hall of Fame Chris Jones number 2 behind Aaron Donald level production, right? That's not him anymore. He's 31. I still think he's playing way too many snaps. For a guy over the age of 30, he can't really put in 100% effort, and we know that's something that Chris Jones already has struggled with his entire career, right? He can take some plays off. But yeah, at his age right now, he can't be the difference maker that he was, and his PFF numbers show it. He's declined a little bit this year, and the guys around him just have not been able to step up. Mike Dana, Charles Omenihu, who I thought we could be seeing a bounce back year, kind of a prove it deal, 1 year type thing. Not much there.
He's horrible.
Yeah, not much there at all.
Yeah, and I certainly don't think it was ever a discussion amongst, Chiefs camp, but, with the trade of Sauce Gardner and you looking at what the Jets got back from him, 2 firsts and a player, the question of, Trent McDuffie and, if we should move him, if what kind of value he brings back. But like you said, if you look at the pressure that we've been able to generate this year, you take that pressure rate and then you don't have a lockdown corner on the back end, those corners are going to be holding for a long time. And outside of Trent, we don't really have any other lockdown corners. So I don't think that should ever be a question whether or not, what his value is to this defense.
Well, I'll tell you what, if the Chiefs traded Trent McDuffie during this season, they're moronic. I mean, there would be no way to rationalize that decision, but I do think as we go into the offseason, as that potential cap number hits them in the face,
right,
and maybe they get a few phone calls from teams that are like, yeah, we'll do the Sauce Gardner deal again. And, we think that Trent McDuffie's actually better, so we'll give you 2 players. I think as a business, you got to take that deal, but that's probably a conversation.
I would say
for the
don't
offseason.
expect that. I would say don't expect that because Sauce Gardner had already been paid. So the Colts were kind of getting him at a discount, no signing bonus, right, in half of this year, right? And Trent McDuffie will have to be paid. Yeah, you're taking on a little bit more. We can have that conversation later in the season, in the offseason, what to do with McDuffie, but I don't think the Chiefs will get that deal for him.
Yeah, I'd love to see him stay, but, like you said, as the offseason goes on, and we'll see how that plays out, I guess.
And it's definitely a difficult decision, and I think, Chris Jones not living up to the bill of what we're paying him to be is probably tough for this organization right now to justify giving Trent McDuffie $30 million a year and probably more than that. And I think Trent McDuffie's younger and he's got a couple big contracts in him if he wants it.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a different situation, but if the Chiefs are going to have some decisions to make. And I think, kind of tying this all back to the trade deadline, they didn't want to give up future draft capital when they don't have a lot of it to get marginally better. I mean, Breece Hall would have been a great addition, but I'm not sure how much they would use him, and I'm also not sure, if they would be able to extend him this offseason if he wants more money than the Chiefs could possibly give him. But there had to be some defensive tackle or an edge rusher that wasn't going to break the bank that would have made your team better.
Yeah. I really don't understand. I don't understand the stance, and that's my phone. Apologies. I really don't understand the stand pat stance. The Buffalo Bills did it too, and they also need some help along their defensive line as well. It's. But now we got to move on, right? The Chiefs are going to try to go into the playoffs. They're not in the playoffs yet, but they're going to try to get into the playoffs with the group that they have. If Mike Pennell was your deadline acquisition, he's a hell of an upgrade over Derek Nottie. That's for sure. PFF numbers back that up. But yeah, it's a little odd because I was expecting a Carlos Dunlap type,
And there were guys out there that could have fit that role, and they probably wouldn't have broken the bank.
Yeah, and I know. Sorry, Caden, but I know KC Chiefs Twitter was just
on fire,
hammering Brett Veach yesterday. But they're coming off of a loss to the Buffalo Bills, so people are already, the stress level is already high. This is still, I think, the most talented football team in the AFC. So I really don't think you needed that much work. The Bills were able to expose some problems you have, but the good thing is in the playoffs, Steve Spagnuolo, he can make adjustments, and he has to the tune of Mahomes being 4-0 against Josh Allen in the playoffs. So I really think it's not a big deal. I just am, like you said, a little bit disappointed a depth piece wasn't added.
Yeah, I think I talked about the Eagles earlier, but I think one of the more frustrating moves for Chiefs fans was that they were able to trade for Jalen Phillips, and not only that, they got the Dolphins to eat a large amount of that contract that he's owed for the rest of the season. And obviously, when you talk about the Chiefs' cap situations, that's something that would be a big positive in a trade for Jalen Phillips. So I think everybody here kind of looks at that like, why can't we do that? So I think that probably is one of the more frustrating parts of this deadline specifically.
When I put out a poll on KC Sports Report, the YouTube channel, I asked the Chiefs Kingdom if they were upset that the Chiefs did not make a move before the trade deadline. 68% said yes, 15% said no, and 16% said yes and no. And over 2,500 people voted. So Chiefs fans are upset the Chiefs didn't go out and make some move. But I'll say this. Just going out and making a move to make a move doesn't make you better. Because last year we were like, we just got DeAndre Hopkins. We just got Josh Uche. All of this talent, Spags is going to use him like this. DeAndre Hopkins is going to return to his previous form where he was an all-pro. Neither of those guys are on the team this year, and neither of those guys did anything to help this team get to the Super Bowl.
Uche couldn't see the field, and Hopkins is kind of a shell of his former self. So, I would put myself in that yes and no category. Leaning no, I'm not really that upset. Because I think it was wise to kind of hold on to your bullets because, Patrick Mahomes is 30. You got some time left with him still, right? They're thinking long term, and I'm not disappointed.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We talked about Trent McDuffie, and then also Rashee Rice is going to be coming up soon. We see the impact that he has on this team. We know that he's going to be a cornerstone of this offense moving forward. So I think it's mandatory that you sign him and try to get him paid, and then just go from there, I guess.
And we'll have Leo Chenal, and like you say, Trent McDuffie, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy's eventually got to get paid. There's a lot of contracts that the Chiefs are going to have to make some tough decisions on. And so having draft capital, at least as much draft capital as you can hold on to, that's Brett Veach's motto, because he went out this offseason, or I guess this previous offseason, and he drafted Noah Williams and Josh Simmons in the first round, and overall had a really good draft class. And so to him, not only are you getting younger at positions of need, you're also getting that team control. And for a team that is trying to sustain this dynasty, that's what you need. And so I think we're all not frustrated the Chiefs didn't make a move at the deadline. We're understanding of why they didn't, but you probably could have found a player for a late day 3 pick that could have come in and give you something. But at the end of the day, I think the Chiefs have all the talent in that building. They just got to figure it out. And I think that kind of leads into our next segment. I want to talk more about where the Chiefs are currently sitting at their bye week. Right now, they're 5-4. A lot to discuss, and we'll get to that on the other side of this break. You guys are listening to The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome back into the night shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, joined in studio by my guys, Kyle Collier and Caden Sproul. And before the break, I teased the topic of a Chiefs bye week breakdown because going into the bye week, the Chiefs sit at 5-4. I don't think that anybody truly thought that the Chiefs would be one game above 500 at their bye week. I think if I was to go back and tell Michael 3 months ago that the Chiefs would be, 5-4 and you escape some games, some one-score games with a loss, and you won those games last year, I probably wouldn't believe you. But as of right now, as of November 5th, 2025, the Chiefs are not in the playoffs. If it started tomorrow, which thank goodness it doesn't, the Chiefs wouldn't be in. And so I think we need to have the conversation of if the Chiefs are a better 5-4 team than other 5-4 teams, or if the Chiefs are actually worse than a 5-4 football team. And I want to get your thoughts, and we'll start with Kyle.
I'm going to say they're better. Rashee Rice coming back obviously just unlocked the offense. So I'm not worried about the offensive side of the ball. This defense is still pretty locked down. Let's not kid ourselves. James Cook, tore him up and became the first 100-yard rusher against a Spagnuolo defense in, 3 years, something like that. So it's been a while since we've seen the defense kind of get roughed up like that. And it's not like it was a bloodbath or anything like that either. I'm going to say I still think they are the AFC champs. I think they have the best talent. Now, getting there is going to be tough because looking at the Colts and the Broncos schedule, that 1 seed and the Buffalo Bills schedule, pretty easy looking, if you ask me. That 1 seed might not be in play this year for the Chiefs. 5-4 right now. It's going to be an uphill climb, and coming out of the bye, the Chiefs have a tough stretch, right? I still think the division though could be in play because the Broncos, it's just you never know what you're going to get. They're having this late game magic, right? But it's against teams like the Giants, right? Like
very Chiefs 2024.
Yeah, right.
So Texans without C.J. Stroud.
And the Texans without C.J. Stroud. Like it's very got this paper mache. It feels like a real thin margin for the Broncos, and I feel like I feel like it won't go their way. But maybe I'm just being a hopeful Chiefs fan, right? But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think this team is better. I think they're right now their offense and defense right now they're top 3 in success rate. And, what more can you ask when you have both sides of the ball performing at that level? Obviously Rashee Rice coming back has accelerated the offensive, production by a ton. I'd like to see them use Xavier Worthy a little bit more. I'm not really sure what plans they have for him right now. Obviously, bringing Rashee back and trying to add him into the fold, it's going to take a little time just because they haven't. I think they've only played like 5 or 6 games total, in 2 years together. So it's going to take a little time for them to gel. But yeah, this defense is very impressive. As you said, Kyle, James Cook is the first 100-yard rusher. I don't know if you guys know the last one.
It was Lamar Jackson.
No, it was
Zamir White
of the Raiders.
The Raiders.
Oh
Lamar has had I think he's had a couple hundred. But yeah, as a running back was Zamir White on that Christmas Day game a couple years ago. So the run game has been stout as far defensive wise, and I think they could have been a little bit better against we didn't expect that type of offensive output from the Bills. But yeah, I think they're a lot better than last season for sure.
I think the Chiefs are the most complete team in the AFC.
Yeah.
The Bills' defense is not very good. I think part of the offensive struggles against Buffalo were your offensive line was not healthy. Josh Simmons was obviously not with the team. Jalen Moore probably got a little bit exposed on the left side, and then Juwan Taylor ended up getting hurt, and Wanya Morris came back, and those Western saloon doors things, like he was offering no resistance. You got beat up by Buffalo, but I don't think Chiefs Twitter just seems to be so down in the dumps right now. They're 5-4, and after the bye they get Denver, and then they get Indy, the 1 and 2 seeds in the AFC right now. So it looks a little tough, but I still think the Chiefs are the best team talent-wise in the AFC.
In sitting at 5-4, the only other 5-4 team in the NFL is the Carolina Panthers. And if those two teams played each other, I think we're all very confident that the Chiefs would
Bloodbath.
kick some ass. I think the Chiefs would be the heavy favorite in that game. And honestly, if you just go back and look at the schedule, obviously you would love to have that Eagles game back, that Bills game back.
The Jags game.
I think the Jags game is the game that changed this season. Because if you win that game, you're sitting at 6-4 at your bye week.
Yeah,
or
you're
6-3.
6-3, yeah.
And then everything is different.
You're only a game behind Denver, yeah.
That game changed the season. And I think that was truly the game this season that they just gave away. I know that the Chargers, they didn't look good. They didn't look good against Philly. But they gave the game to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And if you had it, you look a lot different. And, Kyle, you mentioned how the division is still in play. And I actually put a poll out on KC Sports Report, the YouTube channel. For those of you that don't know, Kyle, Caden, and I do a weekly show on there. I also do daily Chiefs coverage on YouTube. But I put out a poll and asked you guys, do you think that sitting at 5-4, the Chiefs can still win the AFC West? Over 3,500 of you voted. 49% said yes, 33% said no, and 18% said maybe. I feel like that maybe is probably where I'm lying at right now. If the Chiefs want to win the division, they have to sweep Denver. There's no other way around it.
Yeah.
You've got to beat Denver, especially coming off of your bye. But I do think that if we just look at the Chiefs right now at their bye week, I think they're a better football team than they were last year at their bye week. I think offensively they're better, more explosive. Defensively, they might not have given up this many points per game last year, but I still think that they've got more talent on that defense. And I feel like we've been saying this for a long time now, but once they put it together, this is a championship caliber team.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. The only flaws being you can't really get after the quarterback. And so I do worry about it in the playoffs because good teams are going to have good quarterbacks, and good quarterbacks, if given time, your corners and safeties can only hold out for so long. But yeah, like I've said, they're still the most complete team. And Cade, you brought up the scoring drive percentage versus the Chiefs are top 3 in both scoring drive percentage and then scoring drives allowed. Right? They're a strong unit. They get a little penalized on special teams. That's one of the other flaws. But just looking at their schedule, you've probably got to sweep Denver, and Indy looks like they're going to be a tough challenge. But then you got Houston. Houston looks terrible this year. The Cowboys look terrible this year. The Titans look terrible. The Raiders also look terrible. So you have a good chance to fight back in this division. And like I said, with the Broncos and the Chargers too, who are now down Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, the Chargers I don't think are going to be going anywhere, doing anything special this year.
They just don't have the stamina to get there.
Yeah, clearly, yeah. Did they make any moves at the deadline?
They got
they did get a
Penning
tackle
from the Saints.
That's right. So yeah, I think the Chiefs still have a really good chance. You're only 2 games behind Denver. Yeah, you got to play them twice, but Denver's just such a wishy-washy team. You never know which version of that team's going to show up. So I feel like they can definitely take a hit after a hot start, 7-2. But the Chiefs will fight back.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Michael, that they have to sweep the division the rest of the way. Obviously the game against the Chargers, that's one that we have to get back. We can't, get swept by them. That's one that I think you can check that off as a win. And then obviously, the Denver's leading the division, so we're going to need both of those. But then I just compare this season specifically to the 2021 season. I don't know if you guys remember, we started off 3-4 that year, and we had losses early on to the Ravens and then to the Chargers as well. And how did they turn around? They won 9 of the last 10 and finished 12-5.
Mm-hmm.
The only other loss was to the Bengals. I can't remember if that was at home or in Cincinnati.
Nope.
I think it was in
2021 it was Cincinnati
and
because
Jamar Chase went absolutely insane. Yeah, so that was the only loss that they had the rest of that season. So I think that the rest of this season will go similar to that. I can only see them maybe dropping one more game the rest of the year. I don't know where that would be, but nobody envisioned us losing to the Jags, coming into the season.
Right.
So you never really know with the NFL. It's any given Sunday, but I can only see them maybe dropping one more the rest of the year.
When Patrick Mahomes has said most recently after their loss to Buffalo that we don't have any more losses to give. Like we it's time to wake up now because last year when you were 15-2, all right, you lost a game. Who cares? You got the number 1 seed. You ran away with your division. There is no buffer room this year. You are up against the wall, and if the Chiefs do not come out after their bye and look like a different football team, this is where the Chiefs being a 5-4 football team might just be what they are. And I don't think that they are going to finish out being mediocre, but we've given a lot of reasons why the Chiefs got off to this slow start. They didn't have Xavier Worthy after, the first offensive drive of the game. He got knocked out with that injury. Rashee Rice was suspended. Mahomes was working through some stuff with the offensive line.
Josh Simmons left the team.
The team. At a certain point, the excuses are going to go away. We can't just keep finding ways to excuse the performance. We are sitting right now a game above 500. It could be a lot worse, but I'm getting close to the point where I'm out of excuses for this team.
Yeah, and the good thing is that the bye week is kind of coming at the perfect time right now. Josh Simmons has returned to the team facility, or maybe not this week. Everybody's on vacation, right?
He's been on vacation for the last month.
That's true. But he's returned to the team. Hopefully he comes back and you can just insert him into the left tackle spot, and then you're gonna feel good to go. Jawan Taylor gets a bye week to get over his injuries, and Jawan Taylor, I know that's everybody's whipping boy, right? Because of the penalties. But he's been good this year. The penalties kind of went away for a little bit, then they creeped back up there in Buffalo, and then he I think it was an ankle injury. He had to leave the game. But yeah, the bye week's going to be great because you're going to get Denver. We know how Andy Reid does against the AFC West, and then like you said, Darcy, this team is finally becoming a complete team. Rashee Rice is in the fold, so
did you know that Travis Kelce leads all tight ends in receiving yards? By the way,
at 36.
At 36.
See, and I've told
Brock Bowers is coming for that.
I've told people that for so long, though. I think Travis can still be productive at his age, but he can't be the number 1 option, and that's what he was at least for the first 2 to 3 weeks of this season, and a lot of last season when Xavier Worthy wasn't productive over the first half. So I think that Travis can still be productive, and then Kyle, you talked about Andy Reid versus the AFC West. Not only that, but coming off a bye. I can't remember exactly what his record is off the top of my head, but I know it's a lot more wins than losses. He's extravagant off the bye, and I think he'll have these guys ready to go. And Isaiah Pacheco as well. He'll have time to get healthy as well. That's something
with the Chiefs. Andy Reid is 8-3 after the bye.
Yeah.
Overall 32-7.
Do you know what Patrick Mahomes' record against the Denver Broncos is? I can tell you the game that he lost.
Something in 1.
I gave it away. Yeah. That one's on me, folks. He's 13-1 against the Broncos in his career.
Okay.
There was some devil magic involved. He got out of that game last year with the blocked field goal. That counts as a win for him. Yeah. But he has been historically great against the Broncos. And, to your point, the Broncos, you don't know what team's going to show up on Sunday. And the Chiefs are in a win-now mode. I know that sounds corny, but the Broncos can afford to lose a game or two, and they're still probably going to make the playoffs. The Chiefs don't have any games to give away anymore, and I think it's go time. And I think the people in that building understand that urgency, because if they don't at this point, it's never going to happen.
Right. And I'm going through the Broncos schedule right now. 20-12 over Tennessee. They lost by 1 to the Colts. Okay. They lost to the Chargers already. Broncos-Eagles. The Broncos won that game. That was kind of a fluky game. That London game against the Jets. After I watched that game, I just had no fear of the Broncos. They looked terrible. Then they get a miraculous W against the Giants, and then they played the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are terrible. So, and then Caden, you brought it up, but C.J. Stroudless Houston Texans, they barely beat.
And they looked terrible on offense all day long.
Yeah.
They were able to squeak it out at the end just because the Texans weren't able to. The Texans scored 5 field goals. They weren't able to get a touchdown. So it's hard to lose, hard to lose whenever you don't give up a touchdown. So.
Yeah, and just looking at the rest of the Broncos schedule, they got the Raiders tomorrow night. Then they got the Chiefs twice. Then they got the Packers, the Raiders again. Then they got the Jags. The Jags are absolutely capable of beating them. And then I think the Chargers are capable of beating them as well. So I think Denver experiences kind of a second half dip.
The Chiefs are definitely still in the race. I mean, and I think given the fact the Chargers started off their season 3-0 in the division, we all thought they were going to run away with it, and then they completely chargered and fell off. And right now it's the Broncos' turn, but the Chiefs still being at sitting at 5-4, they still control their own destiny. If they go out there and handle business, they're not only a playoff team, they could still win the division. And I don't think that we'd be having this conversation, a couple years ago when the division was last year 3 teams from the AFC West made the playoffs. And I don't think the Chiefs could afford to be 5-4 last year in this division and still have a chance to win. But this year, things are different. The entire AFC is down. And I think one of the conversations we should have is, let's just say the Chiefs don't end up winning the division, but they find a way to squeak into the playoffs. They don't play any games at home. What is your confidence level in the Chiefs still being able to make a run?
Give me Pat Mahomes in the playoffs against any of these AFC quarterbacks, maybe except Josh Allen, but then again, Mahomes is undefeated against Josh Allen in the playoffs. Bo Nix, Daniel Jones.
Maybe Trevor Lawrence.
Maybe. Aaron Rodgers, Drake May. Okay, I like the Patriots. The Patriots are actually the 2 seed.
Too young, though.
But yeah, I agree. They don't have that playoff experience. So yeah, if the Chiefs sneak in as that 6, 5, or 4 seed, I still feel good. I still think that's the best team in the AFC.
Yeah, I'm extremely confident as well, and I think a lot of people would bring up the point, of them going on the road. Well, we've seen them do it already. The year where they went on the road to Buffalo. Well, Buffalo Buffalo first and knocked them off there, and then Baltimore as well, like you said, and knocked them off in the bank as well. So or robbed the bank, as everyone says. But yeah, they've shown that they can go on the road and win as well. So I don't have any doubts about what this team can accomplish if they're able to get in. And you talked about the urgency a little bit, but I don't think it's any secret inside this building, what this team has to accomplish over the last half of this season. I think that Pat certainly has the mentality of, you can't, nothing's guaranteed. You heard him say, they asked him about, the playoffs, but he said we have to get there first. And I think this team has adopted his mentality as he's been the leader of this team over the last, 5 or 6 years. So I think they understand what's in front of them.
And who's better at winning games in late November and December and January than the Chiefs? Historically, there haven't been many.
They get their bleep together. That's what they do.
They really do.
Right.
And so I feel like if there's ever a time, to place your chips in to really hope for the best with this team, the Chiefs are coming. Like, even sitting at 5-4, I think they're a better football team than they've been. Talent-wise, maybe ever. I mean, they've got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. You got Christian Fulton just sitting on the bench, and he could come in if you have injuries in that secondary. And so you've got players, just waiting to make plays, and I think that once you get into the playoffs and the margin for error is so thin, I think Buffalo has shown they don't know how to win, or at least they don't know how to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think Aaron Rodgers, Drake May, Bo Nix, they're all going to crumble under the playoff pressure. I mean, and Patrick Mahomes has shown that when it truly matters, when you need someone to make a play, when you need someone to be literally perfect, he's been that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. The Chiefs are going to be the team that nobody wants to see, come into their building come playoff time. They're the team you don't want to play. They can be the 5 seed and match up against the 1 seed Colts, and I guarantee you the Chiefs will be favored in that game. So the ship is not sinking, even though you lost to Buffalo. I just feel like I have to ease everybody's stress level after this loss, because Buffalo does that all the time. They beat you in the regular season, and then what happens?
Who in this room?
5 straight years now.
I guess it changes it a little bit, because we thought, okay, the Chiefs are rolling right now on offense. Like they're coming off wins against the Commanders and the Lions, and you killed the Raiders. We all kind of thought, okay, maybe this is the year the Chiefs actually steal one in the regular season. But if we all go back to our preseason schedule predictions, I don't think any of us had the Chiefs winning that game.
Right.
So why does it matter now?
Right.
Because the Chiefs are 5-4 now?
I think it's just the other losses that have come along that were unexpected. I don't think the Chargers. I think the Eagles maybe just because we know what type of what they present, but I think the Chargers and the Jags games were just unexplainable losses from the Chiefs community, at least.
The Jags definitely more than the Chargers. I think the Chargers being in a neutral site in a foreign country.
And Worthy going out so early in that game, it kind of threw a wrench in the game plan.
Right. And the Chargers were healthy week one,
Well, and again, the Chiefs have dropped an opener before where you're like, well, that's weird.
Right.
And then they went on to win the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that, correlation equals causation, but I do think that for the Chiefs to be sitting at 5-4 and we still think, okay, this team is crazy talented. This team has showed flashes of being the best team in football. We just need them to continue to flash. And, I think as we get closer towards the playoffs, they're going to start pulling it together. And I think hopefully we see a little bit more effort from the defense and specifically Chris Jones. And, what are your thoughts on Chris Jones?
He's 31 years old. He's not really capable of that top 1 or 2 defensive tackle, just Hall of Fame level of play anymore. And right now, just the guys around him are just not producing. So I think it makes it even harder on him. But yeah, that's a situation worth monitoring. That defensive line, as well as Isaiah Pacheco's injury, Josh Simmons' situation, Trey Smith's injury as well. But yeah, I think if I were to point out their fatal flaw, it is what Buffalo was able to do to them. Josh Allen had all day. James Cook ran all over them. If that defensive line is not right, then it could present some problems in the playoffs. But as far as getting into the playoffs, I think the Chiefs get there easily.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. As far as Chris Jones, I think, like you said, the guys around him. I mean, he addressed that in his post-game conference after the Bills game. He said, we have to win our one-on-ones, and I don't think he's the type of guy to throw backhanded shots or anything like that. But he's just telling you what it is. You know what I mean? And if he's constantly seeing double teams, and somebody else has to win. I think that he could be better. Obviously, his numbers are down significantly. So it's not just the guys around him; it is him as well. So it is something to watch over the last half of this season and going into the offseason and what we're going to do with his contract moving forward. But I think the guys around him have to help him as well.
I'm not trying to be mean. Chris Jones is playing and winning with the power of friendship, and he is playing with literal garbage cans. Charles Omenihu, worthless. Mike Dana, role player at best. George Karlaftis is leading the team in pressures, but not all pressures are created equal.
He's a good player, not a great one.
And he would be a nothing burger if Chris Jones wasn't there in the middle. And so I do think there is some questionable effort decisions that Chris Jones has made, but at the same time, they have given him no help at the edge rusher position. I mean, he is doing more with less, and he has for like the last 5 years. And so I'm not really worried about his effort long term. I think, once we get into late December and January, that's when the games really matter. I mean, I guess the games matter now because you're 5-4, but
right.
I think this entire Chiefs team knows that you don't get judged by what you do in November. You get judged by what you do in January. And that's why, there were so many media outlets and analysts that were, burying the Chiefs, calling the dynasty dead. But, I mean, to be sitting at 5-4, and even though you're not in the playoffs right now, but you've kind of invoked a little bit more fear into the minds of teams. The ones that you have you've beaten them pretty soundly.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it is bringing up the second half schedule. You get a tough stretch with Denver and Indy, but I saw Indy play last week. That they're not unbeatable, and that is still Daniel Jones. I know Shane Steichen has kind of unlocked something with him, and the Colts are a good team. Don't get me wrong. It does kind of suck that they get Sauce Gardner, and then here come the Chiefs, right? But I still think that's a winnable game. I think you got to come out of the bye and go 2-0. I think you do. And if you drop one, make it be the Denver Week 17 game, right? Come out hot, and after the bye, I think there's a high chance that Andy Reid's staff and team can do that.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think every game the rest of the way is winnable, very winnable games, and I think they'll be very motivated to do so. Like I said, they know what is ahead of them, and they'll be ready for the challenge.
It's quite literally now or never. It's put up or shut up. The Chiefs, their backs are against the wall. They're 5-4. this is the point in the season that will change the trajectory of if they're a 6 or 7 seed or a 3 seed. And so it'll be very interesting to watch if the Chiefs can pull it together. And I think history has shown us that they will, but history doesn't mean anything unless you go out there and prove it. And so I think the Chiefs are going to have their work cut out for them. But again, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce coming off of a bye, they should have their best foot forward against the Denver Broncos. But I want to talk a little bit more about that Denver Broncos game, and we'll do that right after this break. You guys are listening to The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHP. Welcome back into the Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm Michael Darcy, joined in studio by my guys Kyle Collier and Caden Sproul. We're going to talk a little Chiefs-Broncos, and instead of doing like a traditional preview since we are so far away from the game, I want to talk about what we are going to be looking for the most. Like, what are we excited about seeing in this matchup? I mean, talk about big matchup. This is the Chiefs' biggest game of the season. I know that we talked about, this Buffalo game, it's super big in the playoff seeding. The Eagles game, that's a big one, Super Bowl rematch. This Denver Broncos game, where you go on the road in Denver coming off of a bye, this truly could determine how your season ends. Because I think if you still want to win the AFC West, you got to find a way to sweep the Broncos. And so It's going to be a tough one. But what are you looking forward to the most in this game?
Number one, Josh Simmons being back. Hopefully he's just inserted into that left tackle spot, set it and forget it for the rest of the year. We're good to go there. Number two, Caden, you brought this up earlier. Xavier Worthy's usage. I need to see more than just reverse jet sweeps, line of scrimmage passes to Xavier Worthy. I know he runs deep a little bit. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of him in the intermediate game. And if you're scared to use him there because he's so small, then why'd you make the pick, right? I want to see Xavier Worthy. I think is a better receiver than the production he's put up since Rashee Rice has been back. He has not topped 45 yards yet. He's against the Raiders 35, against Detroit 20, and then against Buffalo, or excuse me, that is not right. Against the Raiders 35, and then he went 53 against Washington, and then 23 against Buffalo. And it just doesn't seem like he has been a big part of the game plan. He kind of disappeared at times during that Buffalo game, and when he did get the ball, he had defenders in front of him, and he's not really breaking tackles if he's not given space. So I want to see more Xavier Worthy. I know Rashee Rice is back, and he's going to have like 30% of the target share in that offense. But Xavier Worthy, I think all his skills are not being utilized right now.
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say is I'd like to see this offensive line really impose their will. I'm going to go over the sack numbers team-wise in NFL so far this season. The top teams, the Seattle Seahawks are at fifth, at 27. There's 3 teams tied at 27, the Seahawks, Steelers, and Rams. The Lions have 28, and then the Broncos are first. You guys want to take a guess at what they're at right now? Sacks.
Oh, man. I think they're actually on pace to, break the all-time record, if I'm correct. I'm going to say something ridiculous. I'll say 38 right now.
Kyle?
Let's go 37.
40.
I thought that was high.
Yeah, go higher. Yeah. They're sitting at 40 sacks so far this season. So this offensive line has got their work cut out from it, and probably you can say this is the toughest challenge of the season, definitely so far, and then maybe the rest of the year too, considering they have another matchup with them later on. So I'd like to see this offensive line really impose their will and give Pat some time to really operate back there. And then second, I'd say I'd like to see this defense really just get after Bo Nix. I think whenever you make him really make decisions and you don't give him obviously they have a great offensive line. I think that's another underrated thing about Sean Payton's turnover there in Denver is that he's been able to turn around that offensive line so quick. They were terrible under Russ, and then they've been exquisite ever since he's got there. So I think if we can get some pressure on Bo Nix and make him make some decisions, I think he can give you one every now and then. So I like to see them impose a will on the offensive line and then also on the defensive side of it, I guess you could say.
Well, to your point, the Chiefs' offense has to go out in this game and make a statement. I understand that Denver's defense is very good. That secondary, they're probably not going to have Pat Surtain, who's dealing with that injury. I think it's a pec injury.
Yeah,
he's not going to play in this game. But that just pass rush. Nick Bonito is a monster. Leading the NFL in sacks, on pace to break the all-time record. If your offensive line is not playing their A game, if they play like they did against Buffalo,
I'm going to be nervous. I'm nervous about Pat's health.
I'm going to be terrified. At that point, just pack it up and sit him on the you cannot risk the health of Patrick Mahomes in this game by your offensive line not showing up. I think I want to see this offense show up and be dominant because the Broncos' offense is good in moments. We saw them score 30-something unanswered points in the fourth quarter against the Giants. That's the Giants. This is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
I want to see the Chiefs' offense go out there using Rashee Rice, using Travis Kelce, finding a way to use Xavier Worthy, and go out there and put up 28 to 35 points. I know this Denver defense on paper is good. They're not immune to giving up a big game offensively, and I think the Chiefs could absolutely get them coming off of a bye.
Yeah, and a little bit more the creativity that I've seen from the Chiefs. They've been using Rashee Rice out of the backfield, kind of making him that Debo 2.0. Yeah. I would love to see a little bit more of that. He diversifies your running game even more. He's the best runner on the offense, I would say.
Can he play running back? Can we just
line him up back there. They already gave him a goal line carry. He's already scored doing that. I would like to see a little bit more of that. And then just back to my point about AFC quarterbacks, Steve Spagnuolo I think can put Bo Nix in hell, and I think Bo Nix can turn the ball over a couple times. I would love to see a little bit more turnovers forced for the Chiefs defense.
Yeah, that's something that we haven't. I mean, not only this year, but just over the past few years, we haven't been able to get a lot of takeaways. I guess. So yeah, I'd love to see that for sure.
Well, even last year when the Chiefs escaped Arrowhead with a win against the Broncos on that Leo Chenal blocked field goal, Bo Nix didn't have a great game. The Chiefs' offense was just as bad. They were just sputtering along, but the Chiefs' offense isn't the 2024 unit anymore. Like, they have more talent. This Broncos defense is good, but if the Chiefs come out with a good game plan, you can put up points on that Broncos defense and make Bo Nix beat you. Like, I think that should be the theme with everybody in this division, everybody in this conference. Make your quarterback beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And at the end of the day, there's less than a handful that can.
And I think there's a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth from that last game when we sat the starters last year. I know the starters were out, but that was a shellacking. We've never really seen the Chiefs get manhandled like that. I think even as Chiefs fans, we were sick, even though we didn't have our starters out. So I think there's a little sour taste from that.
It could definitely be Andy Reid's get-back game against Sean Payton and the Broncos, and it should be a fun one. Hopefully you have a show before then, but you guys have just been listening to The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Shout out to Caden, Kyle, joining me in studio. Shout out to Covell Hudson. Happy early birthday. And until next time, guys, thank you for listening to The Night Shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB.